All right, you all. I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. I am going live today. Will home prices drop by 50%? In today's video, I'm going to go over a recent housing market prediction for 2026. A housing market expert predicted a 50% drop in home prices. Do I see that happening? What's the reality of that happening? What exactly is this expert saying? And what should you expect for next year for home prices? Now, in the beginning of this year, I did make a prediction that you will see just moderate growth in home prices, just average growth, maybe around 4 to 5%, or I didn't see a big jump or a big drop in home prices. And for the most part, home prices essentially stayed at the rate of inflation. It was around 2 to 3%. And we can look at some articles about that. And the other thing that I want to share is just my overall prediction of the housing market and where I see it going, because a lot of things have changed. Home prices are adjusting. I have a flip on the market, and right now it's over 40 days on the market. That's the longest I ever had a flip on the market. And I already did 110K price drop. It was really originally listed at 330 essentially. Now it's at 320. And then it's going to be price drop here pretty soon in less than a week. Um, is this a trend? And then I'm going to go over another article where people who are not like me, they're not going to price drop. They're just going to take their house out of the market. And so obviously that keeps home prices high. Then how are we going to have price drops if people are taking their houses off the market and that reduces supply? All right. So be sure to like this video, subscribe. This is my third live actually that I'm doing. And of course, I talk about wholesaling on this channel, and then just the housing market in general. And so today I'm talking about the housing market in general. I'm going to be talking about just economic issues and subjects and topics on my lives a lot. And so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen with you all. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this article with you all right now. So, housing housing expert warns Americans are about a about a price correction that is worse than the 2008 crisis, according to Wright. So her name is Melody Wright, and she sees this happening. Essentially, Americans are wary of higher rising costs of living. Home price correction is defined by a downturn that usually follows a period of strong growth and is defined by a decline in property prices, frequently surpassing 10% from peak value. So if home prices drop by 10%, that's considered a correction, right? So for example, earlier in this year, the stock market corrected, right? It dropped 20% with the new news of tariffs and everything, but it jumped right back up. Even if sales continue, they might vary at the city or neighborhood level and are caused by things like excessive price hikes, large inventory levels, and a mismatch with market circumstances. Housing analyst Melody Wright recently claimed that home prices might drop by 50% as early as next year, and that the housing market will experience a price correction more volatile than 2008. That's what she claims. They talked about rising cost of living. I do see home prices either staying stagnant. What? Let me hold on with my prediction, but I do not see a 50% drop. Let's just get that out of the way. This is not the same situation we're dealing with 2008. Fortunately, we do have wiser buyers of homes, and we have people who are super reactive to news, and they would jump upon prices fast, just like what happened with the stock market. The stock market dropped 20%. Back in the day, that used to last months, years, but it rebounded just like that. And so I think in this new age of information, with people understanding stocks and home prices and investments, people are more reactive when they see a deal. And so the pain period doesn't last as long when it needs to, right? For most average everyday Americans. So we can really correct, not just a blimp in the road. But let's continue. I think we're going to correct all the way to the point where household medium income matches the home price, the medium home price. And so that is going to be worse than 2008. This could devolve a lot faster than last time, Wright stated while appearing on Thoughtful Money with Adam Taggart. Although it's difficult to say whether national home prices have decreased this year, Wright explained that there is a discernible slowdown. The uncertainty around President Trump's intention in April caused many purchasers to hesitate and put off buying a home, right? Notable sales that took place in the spring and market were far more expensive residences. Wright stated that home prices have been declining in several U.S. metro areas due to rising inventory and declining demand, especially in the Sun Belt and in the South, which has strong expansions between 2020 and 2022. According to Redfin, the median transaction price in October increased by just 1.2% year over year, indicating a slowdown in the growth of property prices. And okay, so home prices did rise 1.2% year over year, according based off of the month of October. But if you account for inflation, that's actually a price drop, right? Because inflation is over 2% and home prices only rose 1.2%. So nominally, home prices actually dropped a little bit. Moreover, Zillow stated that the value of 53% of American houses have decreased in the last year. So values have decreased some bit due to high home prices, property taxes, insurance premium, high financing expenses. Many Americans are shut out of the housing market despite modest improvements in affordability. In general, housing prices are still higher than they were before the epidemic, even though price growth has slowed. All right. Okay, so you have this market. Majority of folks transacting are in the upper tiers, so your medium home prices is going to be higher. However, what I've been seeing over the last 3 months is, if I get into the dirty details underneath the covers, that 100,000 to 250,000 sell price, we are starting to see incrementally increase in sales in that category, she added. According to Wright, the growth in property prices will be flat by year ends, with a continuing slowdown already apparent. Let me know what you all think so far about this prediction. Wright predicts a sharp drop in property values by next year, primarily as a result of investors pulling out of the market because of unprofitable homes. So she even sees investors pulling out of the market because their homes, their rentals are not making money. In contrast to Wall Street investors' actions during the previous slump, she observes that present investors are expressing worry, speculating about possible government interventions as the buyer of last resort, right? So essentially, she believes in all this, and according to her, property prices may drop as much as 50% to match the typical household income of $83,000. That doesn't make any sense to me. So this is what she believes. What do you all think about that at the moment? I think it's ridiculous, just to be honest. And I think that you guys saw I almost stopped the stream. I pressed the wrong button. I'm still learning all this system and everything. But what are my predictions? So obviously I don't see home prices dropping by 50%. What I do see happening in the housing market, I see one or two things. Okay, home prices staying flat throughout the year, but I see home prices may begin to rise because of what the new administration, the Trump administration, will do with the Fed, right? Once they take control and Jerome Powell leaves the Fed, Trump is going to put somebody in place that does whatever he wants, essentially. And whatever he wants, and the thing that he wants is interest rates to go low. And so he's going to drop the rates, even though those rates aren't directly related to mortgage rates is going to have an impact. And once rates hits that 5, 5.5, 5% range, I think we're going to see an uptick in the number of sales and home prices actually starting to rise. I don't see a huge jump in home prices, but if the administration really does that, get somebody in place and they start implementing quantitative easing, which is essentially dropping the interest rate, then you'll see all of this happening. There is a an option or something can happen where they drop the rates and mortgage rates stay the same because bondholders really control mortgage rates and all of that jazz. But that's more complicated than most people think. But that's essentially what I see happening in the housing market. I don't see a 50% drop. Now, I do see home prices have slowed down this year because I saw it with my own house flip. I have a house on the market and it's sitting now, it's over 40 days on the market, and I dropped it 10,000 from 330 to 320. And now I'm going to do another 10K drop to 310 and or 309. And so essentially it's because number one, mortgage rates are still high. Number two, maybe tariffs do have an impact on the housing market. And I think it puts a lot of doubt in people's mind and makes them think more about making a big purchase, right? So there's a lot of economic uncertainty out there. And then the government shutdown really heightened that uncertainty in people's mind, right? How do they trust the government? How do they trust buying a big home when the government is shut down and there's a lot of services that they can't get? They're not getting paid, or they're not getting stamps, whatever it is, there's always something that can hinder a prospective buyer from buying a home. Because this same time last year, I put a home on the market and it was under contract in less than a week, and it was more expensive than the house I have and in similar areas. And mortgage rates were even a little bit higher last year. But there was more certainty last year than there were this year. And so that plays a big role in the psychology of people buying homes. And so that's what I see happening. Home prices staying stagnant, staying flat in 2026. If Trump puts in somebody in the Fed and they start dropping rates and mortgage rates actually come down, obviously home prices are going to rise along with it. And another reason I think home prices are going to stay elevated and it's not going to drop 50% is because people are not flooding the market right now necessarily with their homes. Yes, things are changing. You have all these things happening with home prices. But the thing is, um, people their home. So I was reading this article on Redfin, and it talks about how the listing jumps 28% as sellers pull homes off the market rather than settle for low prices. So if people are doing this, prices are not going to drop, right? If and a lot of people have a ton of equity in their homes, so they don't necessarily need to sell their home if they're able to take it off the market for right now, put it back in the market in the spring, and get a higher price, right? They have a lower interest rate, they have a ton of equity, they'll just wait it out. And so you have a ton of buyers doing, a ton of sellers doing that at the moment, and that keeps home prices elevated. And so you have some of the highest since 2017. People delisting, delisting, delisting. And so I also want to hit on what's happening in the market in regards to um, the. Let me see. I need to do something right here. Just the overall market right now. So what we have right here, daily average 30-year fixed rate mortgage right now, ending November 25th, we're at 6.2%. So 6.2%, that's a decent mortgage rate for the time being. Before we had mortgage rates in the high sixes last year. As I was talking about, I sold a house when rates were even higher, and I have a new house on the market and it's still not selling after 40 days on the market, and we have a lower rate. So there's other factors that are pushing people not to buy a home right now, and that's because of economic uncertainty. The government shutdown put a lot of doubt in people's minds, and so they're more hesitant in buying a home than they were doing before. So 6.2% right now. It's pretty low for the past couple of years. The medium sell price is 393. Year over year change is 2.4%. So this is the biggest increase in nearly 8 months. So medium asking price is 386. And another reason, and a good point, that the expert who predicted a 50% drop in home prices, she stated that one reason home prices are high is because it's wealthier people buying homes, and with that is higher price homes. And so when you look at medium sell price, that includes all those wealthy homes, right? So a lot of people who can't afford homes, they're, in a way, she doesn't she believes this number is skewed from rich people, essentially, right? Because you could say, though, for example, there's a stat saying that the highest 20% of wealthy people in the US control 80% of the stock market, or own 80% of the stock market, or more than that. And so that goes to say that, yeah, the market looks good, and it looks good for that top 20% of people, right? Essentially, because they own 80% of the wealth, or more, essentially. So right now we have a medium sell price around 393. Active listings 1.1 million. That's up 5.7%, but it's starting to decrease a little bit. Smallest increase since 2020, February 2024. Metros with the biggest year-over-year increases in medium sell price, we have Cincinnati, Cleveland. Hey, Ohio's still doing really good. Detroit, and then we have places in New York and PA. Now, the biggest year-over-year decreases Oakland, Jacksonville, Fort Worth, Dallas, and San Francisco. So that's going on right now. New listings are jumping up in these places, and they're dropping a ton of new listings in Tampa, Florida. Wow, almost 20%. Riverside, San Antonio, and wow. So it seems like a lot of places in the South and Florida and places in California are dropping, right? The Midwest is still doing good, and the Northeast seems like they're still doing well. Medium sell price is right here, and so you can see it's been increasing over the years. Um, and so we have all of that stats going on right now. All right, so that's essentially a market update for you all. I'm going to do some of these videos. Sometimes I'm going to talk about wholesaling. Sometimes I'll talk about the housing market and how it's been performing, my thoughts on it, and different headlines that's been coming out. All right, you all. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. All right, peace.